Recording started. All right, we're rocking and rolling. Good morning, everyone. Homestead exemptions were always one of my favorite means for reaching out to my sphere. So whether it's those folks you already have in your database or you're looking to expand your database, develop your geofarm further to start becoming a real estate resource for individuals, homestead exemptions were always a great excuse for me to reach out to people. And you guys have heard me say it. I personally believe that helping somebody save money is a great way to earn their trust and commitment to utilizing you as their real estate resource. So I'm going to go through the basics of homestead exemptions, but very quickly, and then we're going to talk about tools for reaching out to your sphere to utilize homestead exemptions to develop your business. A recap from some of our training in the end of December. Seems so long ago when we were setting our business plans for 2020. A few of our training sessions, we really looked at an annual calendar, and I need to update that to 2021 now, but looked at our annual calendar so that you could map out things that you would be working on every single month so it doesn't feel daunting that you're trying to generate new ideas every single month for reaching out to your sphere or developing your geofarm. And for me, homestead exemptions were always my January idea. And if anybody needs information about going and planning out your year, check out our next level trainings from December for great business planning ideas. Tax exemptions, first thing I want to remind you is that when we are providing this type of information to individuals, we want to make sure that we are the source of the source and not the source of the information. So we are not tax individuals, we are not CPAs, we are real estate agents. Tax exemptions are not a real estate detail, they're not TREC forms that we're utilizing. So we want to make sure that we're directing our sphere to be familiar with them because it's real estate related, but you don't want to be the source of all things homestead exemptions. You want to know enough to educate your folks to go and do some more research for themselves. What the best resource for you to understand and to direct your sphere to would be your local appraisal district. So I brought up Bexar County as an example for our San Antonio folks. All I do is Google Bexar County, or my Austin folks, Travis County Appraisal District, to get to the appraisal district website and then find their tax information link. So when folks reach out to me and they say, well, I might also qualify for the 65 and up exemption or some of those details, make sure that you know how to find the information to send them to the source to learn more. I will tell you also, I tinkered through most of our appraisal districts in our surrounding market in San Antonio and around Austin, and each of those has a great link under the tax information that says something to the effect of, and this is the Bexar County option that says, are you interested in paying lower property taxes? So this is an example of the Bexar County link. It's also at the bottom to just click on it, but it was found under that tax information section of the appraisal district. And it gives really good details specific to that appraisal district for what the homestead exemption means and what other exemptions those individuals may qualify for. And the reason I mention this is the homestead exemption works slightly different in different appraisal districts. So I'm going to tell you the general overview of what you need to understand the homestead exemption, but we're not going to go into those specific numbers. We're not quoting how much somebody can save because it can vary depending on their specific situation. Oh, go ahead, Beth. I see a note. Our Square One individuals, you guys, for anybody who's Square One, I know we have so many training opportunities, it's confusing. For anybody who's in Square One, make sure you are going, you shouldn't be here. You should be in the reload training right now. Beth, do you want to post that link in the chat thread? You got a couple of we can redirect you guys. Beth can copy and post that link to you guys so you can just click over, pop right over to your proper training.
Shazam.
There you go. Thanks, Beth.
There you go. Miss Judy was waiting. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
All right, bye-bye.
For those individuals, as you guys are popping out, this is recorded, so you can take advantage of it at another time. All right, so the general things to know about the homestead exemption. A homeowner can qualify for this tax exemption, which will save them a little bit on their taxes after the January 1st that they occupy the residence. So if somebody closed in 2020 all the way up to December 31st, as long as they owned that property on January 1st, they can apply for the homestead exemption now. And the appraisal district websites will say they can apply at any time, but I've had a number of people at our appraisal district say, well, first of all, in order for it to count, that savings to count for the year of 2021, it has to be filed before April. And it varies depending on on appraisal district. Sometimes it's April 1st or sometimes it's April 15th. So I always just say before April so that I'm safe and no matter who I'm speaking to. They can still send in that application after that period of time, but the savings would not apply until next year. And I'll pause and tell you that several people of the appraisal district have said to me, tell them only just mail it between January 1st and April, because if they send it after that, yes, we say that we'll process it, but it goes into a big pile and it doesn't seem to be the most efficient pile. So I can't tell you how many people have filed in September and said it never posted and they had to refile. So when a homeowner has occupied their home or owned their home effective that January 1st, they can apply for homestead exemption. So again, if they bought it this year, if they closed last week, they won't file until after January 1st, 2021. Or 2022. I can't count my years just yet. This must be their primary residence. So the homestead exemption is in place to protect a homeowner. And there's other benefits I'm not outlining here. It does protect them if it's their primary residence from being displaced from their home. There's a bunch of other protections, but this does need to be what they're designating as their primary residence. So if they are filing their homestead exemption on a home and they own another home in Texas that previously had that homestead exemption, they're going to lose that exemption on the other home. Another protection that's really important as we're seeing our market prices increase, is filing that extension or that exception actually protects them from the appraisal district increasing their taxable value of their home more than 10% in any year. And I will tell you that's protected a few of my neighbors in my subdivision. We have a lot of new construction and a lot of it's custom. So there's big differences in price ranges. And the folks who filed their homestead exemption earlier, they've had slower increases in home value than some of those that didn't file the homestead exemption and saw large increases because of homes being built around them that affected their taxes. Let me know if you guys have any questions. You guys know with me, you can unmute or you can use the chat window and I'll take a peek. Your drivers, the person who's filing their driver's license must match the address for which they're filing. So keep that in mind. Sometimes people don't realize that until they get the form and then they're scrambling to take place. In Texas, when they have a new residence, we are supposed to update our driver's license within 30 days and filing will require that. So it's a little reminder I like to post for some of my folks that are closing this time of year. So the basics of the homestead exemption is this is an exemption that in which they can apply for that reduces the taxable value of their home. So for instance, in Bexar County, if they own a $300,000 home, on the school taxes, which are a huge portion of our taxes, they're only going to be taxed on $275,000 in value of that home. It reduces the taxable value. Deborah, yes, I did say that's going to protect them from huge jumps in appraised value on their home as well. So that's another built-in protection there. Good job. You're welcome. Just a side note, when you start talking about homestead exemptions and filing this time of year, there are also some other exemptions that folks may qualify for. And I'm going to show you some examples of this. There's a 65 and older, there's a disability exemption. There is a veterans with disability exemption. So any veterans with over a 10% disability rating, they can also save, in addition to their homestead exemption, can save. And for any veteran in Texas who is 100% disabled, they actually don't pay any property taxes. So these are important things for you guys to know about that add value to your sphere. And then just a side note, and I even put it on here, shame on me. We hear about agricultural exemptions all the time. The ag exemption is not actually technically an exemption. It's agricultural value that's placed on a home. But just because I get this question quite often when I'm talking about taxes, just realize that if they have that ag value established for their property, they have to keep it up. They have to reapply for it within 30 days of purchasing a property. Otherwise, they have a 7-year reapplication process. It's a lot of information. How are we doing there?
Doing good.
Okay, so far?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All the stuff I'm studying.
Good job. Oh, yeah, that's right, Bill. Good job. All right, at closing, I encourage you, we're always working on providing as much value for our clients as possible. And just a side note while we're having the conversation, when I'm at the closing table with clients and the escrow officer goes off to scan copies of documents and get us everything we need, I tell my clients a few things. I ask the escrow officer to make them a couple of copies of the closing disclosure, or if it's a cash deal, the HUD statement, so that my buyers can walk away with those in case they need them for the post office or their HOA. And another thing I tell them at that same point is that they're going to start getting mail from the appraisal district. The appraisal district is going to send them a form that they can complete describing what they paid for their home. The form looks a little scary and says it's their public duty to do this. It is actually not a required form. So that is a form sent by the appraisal district that encourages them to share information about how much they paid for the home, which could have a negative impact on their taxes if it increases that value. So I just mentioned that and tell my clients to call me if they have any questions about it. And then the other piece I mentioned is that there are going to be outside companies that earn business by offering to file the homestead exemption for them for a fee. And I see anywhere from $45 up to $300 charged by those outside companies to file this piece of paper. So I just tell my clients, if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Helps me keep that relationship, but it's a nice little note that I can share that extra value and save them some money in the future. So let's talk about this. You've got the basics. You can go and read up in your specific appraisal district and learn a little bit more about the homestead exemption and come up with the language you feel comfortable with. But how do we distribute this information? So that's the first thing I want to talk about. First, you have a fabulous new design center image that Tony has created for us. For our San Antonio division, this is a much prettier version of the house we had in the past. So this walks a homeowner through the basics of understanding the homestead exemption and how they can file, and encouraging them to contact you for questions. So this is located on the boss in the design center. It can be branded to you. And this is something you can post, and I've got examples. You can post on social media. You can post it on your community social media sites. So every year I post this actually on my Nextdoor account for my neighborhood. And because it's a value add and I'm not saying, hey, can I sell your home? I've never run into an issue with that. I've never run into an issue with that being considered solicitation. You can send it as a direct message to individuals through social media. You could send a custom engage campaign email. If you've not done this yet, and I can direct you to the correct training in Moxie Engage, you can set up a custom email or a one-time email to everybody in your database and just include this image with a personal note encouraging them to reach out to you. Or you could email this directly, just drop it in the middle of a Gmail email as an image, and you could email it directly to individuals in your database. So those are a few examples of utilizing the design center image to connect with people. We also, I will show you at the end of this training where to find this, but we also have a version signed that will fit in a quantum a quantum postcard. So if you're looking for an opportunity to utilize your quantum credits you've established through listings or open houses, that same image can be utilized to send out postcards to your sphere. And on the next screen, I actually have the links showing you where to create that custom card. If you've not used the custom quantum postcard yet, you'll actually go under the farming button in quantum postcards, the jumbo cards, and then view the JBGoodwin Realtors custom design template. So I wanted to include those steps for you to make sure you know how to find that option. And I've got this example of what it looks like in the folder I'll show you at the end to help you so you're not reinventing the wheel. You can also, and I got a screenshot, if Chris is on the call, I got the most flattering I could. I had all kinds of funny screenshots before that, so I worked hard to protect your image. But you can post a video on social media describing the homestead exemption, describing the basics of how it can save your sphere money, and post that on social media. You can also record a video in advance that you could post on social media, but we have the option through our Moxie Engage system. You can actually send out direct emails with that video embedded right in the email, branded to you, and you could send that out as a Moxie Engage bulk video email campaign. And we have steps to doing that on the drive. So you could describe the exception, how it can save money, and the basics for learning how to file along with supporting information. So these are all free things that you can do to get this information out there and show people that you are their real estate resource. As you're doing open houses, you're going out and introducing yourself to businesses, you're showing up for HOA meetings. You could also bring flyers with you. You could create your own, or why reinvent the wheel. You could also pony off of some of those forms that our Austin Title and our local San Antonio Independence Title, Alamo Title, our title companies have. And if you reach out to your favorite title rep, quite often they will brand that flyer to you as well. So you have something that you can provide that has your contact information, or just attach your business card to it if you wanted. For those of you who are utilizing your Moxie websites, what I did, because I like to try to train my sphere to find their way back to me, is I took the information for an overview of homestead exemptions, and I have a link to mine actually on my website. I put together a little synopsis of what the homestead exemption is and the process for filing, and I created a page on my website. That way, people have to come to my website to find the content I'm sharing. So what I did is I created that page on my website, and then when I'm sharing this information on social media, I just copy and paste the URL to that specific page to social media. So for people to come and read the content, they're coming to my website in order to do that. And maybe then they click around a little bit, realize they can search for properties on that Moxie website, and they dive in and get to know me a little bit better, and hopefully realize that I want to be their real estate resource for everything. One thing I'll mention is make sure that if you are creating your own website, you need to paraphrase or rewrite everything to be original content. So you're not going to get dinged with having any plagiarized content. We can't just copy and paste to our websites. So what I do is I copy and paste content I like from other sources, and then I rewrite it in my own language to paraphrase. You can mail a letter directly, and that's a popular example among our agents. And I will show you in a few slides where we have this letter pre-written, so you can just customize it to yourself, and it's easy to print out. We have examples for neighbors, for your past clients, and we're going to talk through this now. You could shorten this if you want it, but this letter starts out with, "It is my goal to be your real estate resource. This extends far past me aiding you in the sale, purchase, or lease of a home. I also hope to be your resource when you're considering investments, understanding property taxes, blah, blah, blah." So this is an introduction. When I don't have a solid relationship with somebody, it is an introduction to somebody. And I also ask for referrals and ask them to share this information. All right, so we have lots of different ways that we can deliver this content, and I want to talk about different ways or who you should be delivering this content to. So to whom do we send these communications? First, an easy one, for those of you who have been in the business for a little while, I certainly encourage you to send the homestead exemption information to your clients from last year. And again, we have that letter already written, starts out with, "First, I'd like to thank you for trusting me to represent you in the purchase of your home last year." Letter's pre-written. There's a link here for you to file or find it on the drive. And when I'm at the closing table with my clients, I can always tell them, don't worry about that third party who's emailing you or sending you something in the mail offering to file your homestead exemptions. I'm going to send that to you in January. And I set my own deadline there. So it makes me stick to that every January, incorporates that marketing. My personal process, I always include my business card with that. And I'll actually take the blank exemption form for their appraisal district and include that in the packet. It's black and white copy, free for you to print at the office with all of these things. And I'll fill in just the legal description for them, because that tends to be one thing that hangs up homeowners in filling out the form, is it asks them for the legal description of their property, and they don't know how to find that. So you certainly don't have to go that step. If they skip it, normally the appraisal district will still file it for them. But for my past clients that I really want to show the extra work that I've done for them, I'll fill that out and note it in the envelope. And then if you really want to go above and beyond, you can even include an envelope in that package for your past clients that's pre-addressed for their appraisal district to send it in. That isn't something I do for cold leads or generating GeoFarm communications, but it is something I do for my past clients to show them that I'm going to continue to go above and beyond for them. If you say, Erin, that means I have to go and spend some time figuring out who all my buyers were from last year. Remember, if you've been utilizing Moxie to organize your transactions, Moxie can provide that for you and find your past clients. But a quick way to also put together that list is to do an MLS search that just is searching for any of those transactions that you were on the sell side for it. So I've included in the MLS those fields. You're going to look for only sold properties. You're going to put your license number into the selling agent ID, go all months back, and then you'll establish closing dates. Ooh, and look, I need to update that to 2020. Sorry, I didn't catch that one when I reviewed this from last year. But from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. So you can search in the MLS and find all of the addresses that you represented so you can quickly knock those out. I personally have always been in the business that even the transactions that I represented the seller on, I actually send homestead exemption letters to the buyers who purchased that home. They're no longer in a representation agreement with that agent. I'm going to be a familiar name because I was on the other side of that contract they were working on. And this has actually led to a number of closings for me that the person who ended up buying the listing I represented, I send the homestead exemption, I add them to my drip campaigns that follow, and then when they go to resell that home again, I'm at the top of that list. So that's just a little side note, but I would consider it, it's somebody who needs to file the homestead exemption. Why not be the person who helps them out with that? Mario, good question. I looked at the home I sold and it still shows the previous owner's exemption. Should that have changed? If the new homeowners happen to qualify for the same exemptions, those may appear, but no, it probably should have fallen off, but sometimes it takes a little time for that to do that. I will say the appraisal district, those records are not always the most accurate. Sales in general, at least in Bexar County, and if Austin, if you guys experience something different, feel free to chime in. But we normally, it takes about 3 months for any updates to happen, even the homeowner typically. And then sometimes those exemptions take a little bit longer. Good question, Mario. Let me know if that didn't answer that.
Erin, can I jump in?
Yes.
The previous.
Sorry, Mario.
Oh, sorry. I know that it's the previous exemptions because the previous owner had an over 65 exemption, and the new owners I know are not over 65. So I know that it's the previous owner's exemptions, and that home was sold in the early part of last year, back in March or April.
Oh, that's interesting. So yes, it definitely should have updated past that. And I'm curious. I would actually, just as a red flag, I would reach out if you're folks, I would reach out to the people wherever they moved. If they qualify for it, I'd make sure your buyers applied for the over 65, or your sellers at the time, I'm sorry, qualified for, or applied for the over 65, because that's normally the second red flag. If we don't see it drop off the old property, once they file the new exemption on the new property, the appraisal district normally goes back and double checks to make sure they remove the last one.
Oh,
because
okay.
they can only have that over 65 on one resident. So it might just be a typo.
Actually, I think the previous owner might have passed away.
Oh, gotcha. Well, so you represented the buyer and it's still showing.
Correct.
Gotcha. Well, they're saving taxes. I wouldn't say a peep.
Okay.
I guess the only thing that could happen, and you might even warn them, is if the appraisal district realized it, they could go back and back charge them that difference.
Okay. So should I encourage them to file the exemption or just leave it alone?
I would encourage them to file the exemption, because I expect it's going to get caught at some point. And then if they miss the window to file, then they're going to be paying more. So that would be my recommendation. But you might tell them it's kind of a gamble if they get lucky and it streams on.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good question, Mario. Sharon.
Yes. So when I was going through the searches in my neighborhood, some of the non-filed exemption or homeowners no longer live there. So there was a different address for the property owner than the address. So I sent it to them anyways. like probably like 5 or 6 I caught, and I just sent it to them because I'm assuming they have it. If that's their home address, there's like 1 or 2 PO boxes, and I just sent it because I don't know if they're here or not.
Right.
Okay to send that to them because now
Absolutely.
I feel like I kind of had something where Mario had that situation where they're claiming the tax exemption on their home and they're not there. They're out of
Right.
town.
Sometimes you have investors, you might have investors that actually reside in another property and this is their investment property. You can have a lot of different scenarios, or people that just maybe they frequently move, so their mail goes somewhere else. In San Antonio, quite often we have military members, they deploy. So they have their mailing addresses other places that are managed because they're not home for large stints of time to manage that mail. So I would certainly always still send it, even if their mailing address is a different location. You'll have those few that are investment properties and they might realize they don't want to file the homestead exemption on that property, but hey, you're still connecting. You're still a value add, so I'd send it anyway. Good question, Sharon.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job.
So
You're welcome.
So you would send it to just people you don't even know in some instances, just because like I'm going through and working through a farm and whatnot, and then I'm noticing, hey, they just bought a home in 2020. They don't have the homestead. I'm thinking it could be a decent idea to reach out. Obviously, they wouldn't be buying anything anytime soon, but still a way to get out there.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to go through in these next few slides. Is I use this as a means to increase my sphere and start communicating with people in my geofarm area that I don't know. 100%. Good question, Taryn. You tee me right up for my next slides. So above going from past clients, the next step of what I've always done when I'm setting my goal is I actually research and I go in the MLS, I do a search in the entire community that I'm geofarming, whether that's my own subdivision or one that I've selected I want to develop my presence in, and I search for all of the homes that closed last year. So similar process, look for just sold homes. Either enter the subdivision community or do a map draw, depending on how you've established your geofarm. Say you want to look for sales all months back, and then add the search field for closing date and look for all of those properties that closed January 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. And then you can have a list of all of the addresses for the individuals who you know January 1st this year they qualified for the homestead exemption. And we have another one of the letter examples we have in the drive is not, hey, past clients, I want to be your resource. It's, hey, neighbors. And you could change that to, hey, Rogers Ranch homeowner, or whatever you wanted to put, or take the time to write in a name. But that is a great way. I personally do that for my subdivision every year. So even if I didn't represent those folks purchasing a home, I'm that resource for the neighborhood. They know I'm always looking out for them. We're going to go a little further with this and look at some ideas for you also. So that's a great way to know folks that you know qualified. And you might even do this the last couple of years back. If you want to get really complex and really use this system, you can actually search for just those neighbors who have not yet filed, and you can do this in bulk. Now it gets a little more complicated, but I've included the screenshots for you. And for my San Antonio division, I've got your screenshots first, and then Austin, you use a different tool, so I've got your screenshots second. But for San Antonio, we use a system called the courthouse retrieval system. It's actually one of your main tools when you log into the MLS. It's on your front screen in the tools box on the bottom right. It's called the courthouse retrieval system. So don't worry, Austin, I'll get to you guys also. But with both Austin and San Antonio, when you're using the tools that I'm going to describe, unfortunately, there isn't a way to say, show me everybody who has not filed. However, you can look at a list of everybody who lives in the subdivision, and then you can pull a list of everybody who has filed their homestead exemption and cross-reference that to find out just those people who have not yet filed. And you can do it pretty quickly once you manipulate the system. So starting with San Antonio and courthouse retrieval system, this is what I just described to you. You can't pull a list of just those who have not qualified. But in courthouse retrieval system, again, you go to the MLS toolbox on the main screen, click courthouse retrieval system, and then you're going to select prospecting. The next screen you'll get, you select your county, and then you can define either by subdivision or you can draw on a map. So if you're in a huge subdivision and we're not geofarming all 1,000 homes, but you've picked specific streets, You can do the map draw to draw out the section in the map of where you want to include and do this search. In the next screen, once you establish that subdivision, you can export that list. I used Cross Mountain in Rogers Ranch as my example. It was just a quick one for me to pull in my example. My total list of people who live in that subdivision was 678, just to show you how this will compare. First, I export this list, and you can either export it directly onto address labels that you put right onto an envelope, or you can just export a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet if you're going to use that for cross-referencing. The next step, on the bottom left-hand side, you can see you can look and see what people file for tax exemptions. And both in the Austin tool I'm going to show you guys, as well as the San Antonio tool, this is just a great tool to know about, that you can go and see which people qualify for tax exemptions. So a side note, let's say you're even curious, you want to do military on the move postcards to your neighborhood, you can target just those folks who have filed military disability exemptions, knowing that they have some connection to the military. But in this example, to now find those who have filed their homestead exemption, I'm going to go down to the tax exemption section, and I'm going to select every one that starts with homestead. And this looks confusing. You can't just do the first homestead block, because that's people who just filed for the homestead exemption. You need to select all of those that start with homestead, because they might have the homestead plus the 65 and up, or the homestead plus the disability. So you're actually going to spend about 3 minutes clicking through and gathering all of these. On the next screen, you'll see my list jumped from, what were we, 678 before? Yes, 678 people in the whole subdivision. Only 525 have filed their homestead exemption. So that means 23% of the subdivision might be paying more on their taxes than they should. So now I can compare those two lists, whether it's spreadsheets, or some of our agents said, hey, Erin, I'll waste the extra $3 on extra address labels, and they print the full neighborhood and address labels and then just peel and stick those that have not filed. You guys decide what's best for you. Does that make sense? You can decide. And for my super techie people, you can get creative, have an Excel spreadsheet, delete out those that already filed, and then do a mail merge if you want to create address labels for my techie folks. I'm going to pause and see if we have any questions there. All right. For Austin, you guys use Realist. Very similar tool, works very similarly. You don't have to click quite as many buttons, which is nice from a homestead exemption standpoint. This information was provided to me. Allison McGee in our Westlake office provided this information, so she's a great resource for us. So you use your Realist tool from your ABOR MLS. You can click assessments and taxes and have the same effect in filing your homestead exemptions and selecting whether they have. Yours is a little easier to see who has and who has not filed that. And then one other thing, if you're saying, Erin, that is too much information, I'm not going to do 150 people in my subdivision, that's a lot, but I want to set a goal for myself this year that maybe I get to know people on the next 2 streets. You can manually walk through this process, and I'll pull over just Bexar County. For my brand new agents, if you don't know how to find your appraisal district website, I would literally encourage you to Google Bexar County Appraisal District, and you will end up on this website, or Travis County Appraisal District. And when I get to this screen, and taxpayer resources is that tab where I can find the homestead exemption form, information about saving on my taxes. And if I go to our online services and the property search, I'm going to pick an address. This is in Rogers Ranch. I always use this for my example training. Just to show you this the manual way. Maybe you say, Erin, I want to just search my closest neighbors and figure out who may be able to benefit from the homestead exemption. I find the easiest way to do that, once I've searched an address that's in the subdivision I'm working, rather than looking at the complete details, I switch over my view to looking at the map. So there's a little button on the top left-hand side that says map. And on a side note, I use this for digging through data. Let's say I'm doing open house and somebody comes in and says, hi, I'm Tracy. I don't want to fill out a registration form. I'm just a neighbor down the street, but I want to go and cyber stalk Tracy. I'll do that by starting to click on houses around the street till I find Tracy and can save her contact information. There's my creepy stalker moment of the day. But from an appraisal district standpoint, this is, let's say this is my home in a subdivision and I want to see which of my neighbors haven't qualified. I can click on the address next door and quickly say property details, jump down and see they don't have any exemptions filed. So look, I already found one neighbor who might be able to benefit from filing their homestead exemptions. If they had filed, I'd see HS here. So I'll go down the street here a little bit until I find one that shows you. None of these people have filed their homestead exemptions. Somebody start working Rogers Ranch. All these people are wasting money. Oh, no, I've angered the system. Okay, of course, it's only because I'm training that it's giving me an error message. I've never had a problem doing this. I refreshed my screen. There we go. Somebody filed their homestead exemptions. So you can see where those exemptions appear. So if you want to set a small goal for yourself to start building your farm or in your geo farm, start targeting some individuals without spreadsheeting the way I've just outlined, that would be my recommendation, is just setting a goal for a couple of streets around the geo farm area that you're working. That is what I reference on the next slide of using conduct a map search through the appraisal district, utilizing the map feature. And then in a recap, and we can kind of talk through and answer questions and see what successes you guys have had. I have the link on this slide that takes you to our homestead exemptions folder. You can also just search homestead exemptions on the drive. You'll find my letter that says homestead exemptions for neighborhood, homestead exemptions for past clients. This complete training is here. I will upload this page to have the video from today. It's my last time I taught this class. It's that video, but I will upload it to, or update it today, so you can find the video link here. And then this is the image if you want to send out a Quantum Digital postcard. This is the image that's been sized just right for Quantum Digital so that you can use that as well. Oh, Jeff, you're on it. Rogers Ranch, get them. There's so many people wasting money. I love it. You just posted that. Dana, yes, creepy stalker moment. I use appraisal district, and that's just a side note because we have some extra time here for answering questions or helping folks. I use this if I'm showing a property and I'm trying to get a feel. The neighbor or the seller says there's a green belt behind the property. I'm trying to figure out if it's actually a green belt or something that could become commercial property in the future. I can click on and see exactly where those lines are with the appraisal district and see who owns. I see that this is actually owned by the Property Owners Association. In this example, it's a green belt, it's a drainage easement for them, but it helps you do some digging. So I like that map feature in general for use. All right, how are we feeling, everyone? Any questions?
Aaron, real quick, is there anything on Moxie Engage that's an easy send out to our sphere that you know of?
Yeah, so if I were in Moxie Engage, we don't have it pre-templated for you,
Okay.
but I can show you. What I would do is go to Moxie Engage. Give me a moment here and I'll pull it up. I have to click one button there. You guys don't have to click. I would go to campaigns, add from library, and I would pull the custom campaign.
Okay.
We have a template for you that you can customize any content you want. So if I scroll down, campaign template, sequential days, just so you guys know, if you haven't really dug into campaigns, you can do templates that are, you can do one-off emails. So we have, for instance, I'll find, here's the single email template. I'm going to come down to that. We can do video emails. Campaign templates you can create sequential. So I'm going to create something that sends them the homestead exemption today, and I'm going to send them something on another date down the road. So this, you can create your own series over time. You can send something that just goes out on specific dates. So if you really want to work Moxie, you could set up the system, just mail this every January 15th to anybody who's in your database. or for this example, I would actually use the single email template. I'd add it to my campaigns. And then what you have to do to use a campaign is you have to create an email that that campaign will utilize. So if I go back to campaigns, ooh, I got to use my single email template is ready to use at this point. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to add an email. Oop, no, I'm not. Just kidding. I need to create a custom email. So I actually have to go back when I do that. I have to create the email in the system. I'm making it confusing. So I'm going to send you follow-up steps because I'm going back and forth on you guys. Let's see, example here. For me, I'm going to pick any one that I like the look of, and I can show you this is one I've used. I want to set up my email. I can put my subject line, save money on your taxes, something that'll catch attention. There can be a preview text that when they get the email, you know how sometimes you see a little extra text that follows the subject line depending on their email signatures. We can have that. And I can actually write the email, edit the email content, and write in what I want to write. And what I would personally do is you can actually add photos. I would add that homestead exemption image from the design center and drop that in.
Cool.
Once you do that, you can and save the email. I'll send you, Edward has a really easy to follow video that didn't go back and forth like I just did. So I'll send that as my follow-up. You can send that out and you can have it saved, and every year you can use the same thing and send it to your whole database. I've been tinkering with the custom. We're actually doing a workshop next week. I've been tinkering with the custom because a lot of our agents are creating custom campaign emails to use, like describing that their services are free if they're a buyer representative, sending out the home buyer wish list, or encouraging people in their sphere to use the MLS Touch app. So if you're curious about these are all custom emails you guys can create for yourself. This is one that if you guys, both ABOR and SABOR have an MLS Touch app that you guys can customize to yourself so people can use it. That's an email I helped one of our agents write that allows people to click here and download their own MLS Touch app. So those are all custom emails you can send through Moxie. So that's what I would encourage for that delivery. Lots of information. Any other questions? We've got extra time. So if you've gotten the information you need from homestead exemptions, I'll just kind of recap here and go back over our list. Homestead exemptions, of course, are a great follow-up for connecting with the people that you've already served and reminding them that you want to continue to be their resource, and in the process asking for referrals for other people they feel like you could help. But it's also a great way to start becoming an ever-present person in your GeoFarm area. So you guys have heard my spiel on starting to be a presence in your neighborhood or that neighborhood you're working consistently. And this was constantly something. And then I found that people then started calling me maybe when their taxable value came out in April, and they'd call and say, hey, you know a lot about taxes. What do you think? Can we do a market analysis, or how do we fight this value? I became that resource for people calling on a regular basis.
Erin, I have a question.
Yes, Iris.
Hi. Okay, so Cheryl and I are actually doing a home buyers class series with a middle school by SeaWorld. And our first class is going to be homestead exemptions. And I was just wondering, what is your thought about doing like filling out a homestead exemption with them as an example?
I think it's a great idea. You'll have access to my slideshow. So if you want to create your own, if you're presenting physically to them, you could pick and choose what you wanted. But I think that's a great example. I would bring a stack of those homestead exemption letters and actually coach them through. Now, be careful. There's information if they're trying to figure out, there's some specific details to them and how they file their taxes. So I just want to make sure you point them in the right direction. But if they have personal questions, you might need to refer them to their CPA. So just be careful about that.
So just the general information, like where things go and whatever, and anything specific to you, contact your CPA.
Absolutely. And then I would encourage you, as you're collecting information, let them know that you'll sign them up to follow up with information in the future that might help them. with savings or information that's pertinent to being a homeowner. We have one of the campaigns we have in Moxie is a seasonal home maintenance calendar. I love that one for homeowners. It goes out just 4 times a year and tells them things they should do to maintain their home. So that might be a good way to get people to sign up, and then even tell them that you'll email them the links to finding the homestead exemption form or some of those details as a follow-up.
Yeah, it's all virtual, all of the series, so I can just send it all in the chat since they're teachers, they're used to the Zoom. So it should be something.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I love that you're doing that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Marcy in Austin, she's been doing this for lead generation from the beginning, so I'm glad to hear that. This has been one of my tried and trues. And stick with it. You know, every once in a while, we have somebody who sends out 50 messages and they get 3 leads out of it. And then we have folks that do it and they didn't get a return the first time. But stick with it, because I promise in connecting with people, this is something that people realize. You're not just mailing them and saying, hey, I want to sell your home. You're going out of your way to help them and save money. So it really helps make an impact with individuals. And I can't tell you how many times I've had positive feedback over the years, or saw a lead come even a year after I sent them that form because they saved my contact information. So it's something I encourage you to build into your business plan and stick with from year to year. That's all I've got for today, guys. Any other questions?
I just had a quick question, and it wasn't really, it's not really with the homestead exemption, but I saw one of your emails was about the cost of your services to help a buyer find a home. So if you sent an email out like that, that would be a great idea for me to send out to my Geo farm. But is that soliciting? Like, would I get in trouble if there's other real estate agents already working with people?
You can always protect yourself by the end of your email in small script, just putting this is not intended to solicit currently listed properties. You don't worry about that with that specific email though, because I mean, if they're a buyer, they could always be buying another property. You don't have to worry about that. No, you're safe. When you're sending out those mass emails and things, if you were emailing somebody directly, I'd worry about that. But if you're doing bulk emails, you're okay with that. On postcards, when we're doing that direct targeted that you mailed something to one individual, we want to make sure we always have that note about not soliciting currently listed properties. We force that onto your quantum cards to protect you. But when you're doing communications like that in bulk, I wouldn't stress that. Just be careful about your language. Some of the things we've seen shaking out with NAR and some of the challenges this year they've had with legal issues is making sure that you're clear in that language. So we can't misrepresent and act like we work for free. So my language, and I can send that as a follow-up to you guys as examples when I send the follow-up. I don't say, you know, it's free to buy a home. I just say my services are free to you because they're paid for by the homeowner or the seller. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I liked that wording. That's why I wanted to use it. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I will send it to you. That you can copy and paste.
Yeah, that'd be great.
When we send emails, we can copy and paste, and the reason I do those is so you guys have content to pull from. So I'll send you that example and a few other examples. The MLS Touch one I mentioned to you, and we have, for those of you who want to get complicated on follow-ups, just for those of you who are still hanging out here and want to see it, I won't take it personally for anybody that's gotten the information they want and they're going, but I showed you the MLS Touch one. I love because a lot of our agents use this as a follow-up. The MLS Touch, you can brand it to yourself, and then you just customize this email. It says, click here to download my free real estate search app, and you just put your own personal link so that all comes back to you. And you can see what people are doing searching online. So that's a custom one I've created. Home buyers wish list. If you want to create a custom list that people who are looking for their dream home, they can fill out a questionnaire about what they'd like to have in their dream home. We have instructions for that. It's just a Google form that you can personalize to you. We have instructions for that on the Drive as well. So that's another example of a custom email you can set up. And before I send this follow-up shortly, I will create the email I would use for homestead exemption so I can send that example to you guys. And then the free services one, for some reason my image is timing out, so I'll reload that and make sure we're not running into an issue, but I'll send you that language as well for anybody who wants to use it.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Any other questions? Even if it's completely unrelated to homestead exemptions, You know me, I blocked out time. If anybody's working on something and has a question, I'm happy to answer.